my salad, and yeah, I don't really want to mess with anything mushroom altogether, really. That's kind of how my stance is.
Isn't it sad to think that, years and years and years ago, people died to help us understand which berries will kill you and which mushrooms will kill you? I mean, that's the ultimate banana in the tailpipe trick by God. He puts all these plants out there, but some of them, if you eat them, it'll kill you. Sorry about that one. Eat the other one. That one, no, don't eat that one. Eat the other one. But yeah, people died because at some point we didn't know which berries will kill you, and then I guess we found out. Okay, I don't know how we got off on that tangent, but we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back to Aaron Rodgers. Here is, and Chris, you weren't here on Friday when we spent a lot of time talking about Sean Payton's comments about Nathaniel Hackett, and also Payton took a flamethrower to his own organization. I mean, that thing had layers and levels of intrigue.
He eviscerated everybody.
Payton met with reporters on Friday and admitted a mistake. We'll talk more about that as well. Here's Aaron Rodgers from Sunday. Training camp tour, NFL Plus, which I don't know anyone has NFL Plus. So if you had NFL Plus and you happen to have it on yesterday, you would have seen Aaron Rodgers being interviewed and not being asked about Sean Payton's comments, but still sharing his thoughts about Sean Payton anyway.
Yeah, I love Nathaniel Hackett, and those comments were very surprising. For a coach to do that to another coach. My love for Hack goes deep. We had some great years together in Green Bay, kept in touch. Love him and his family. He's an incredible family man, incredible dad. And on the field, he's arguably my favorite coach I've ever had in the NFL. Just his approach to it, how he makes it fun, how he cares about the guys, just how he goes about his business with respect, with leadership, with honesty, with integrity. And it made me feel bad that someone who's accomplished a lot in the league is that insecure that they have to take another man down to set themselves up for some sort of easy fall if it doesn't go well for that team this year. Thought it was way out of line and inappropriate, and I think he needs to keep my coach's names out of his mouth.
As I mentioned on the throw, I wasn't sure whether or not the question was going to be there. He was specifically told, I'm not going to ask you about Sean Payton's comments. Tell me about your relationship with Nathaniel Hackett. So Rodgers said something that he came there wanting to say. Because he had an easy way to not say a thing about Sean Payton, to not go there. He took it there, despite the setup being, I'm not going to ask you about Sean Payton's comments.
Why wouldn't you want to
Rodgers
ask
shared
him?
his
No,
thoughts.
I was a little confused by that. I don't understand that, but okay.
Hey, maybe it's 4D chess, and it's a way to get him to talk about it. Maybe that's how you have to deal with Aaron Rodgers. You tell him, I'm not going to ask you about the comments, and when you say that, he'll actually talk about the comments. But regardless, he mentioned the thing that has become the prevailing narrative within the Jets, that they think Payton did what he did because he knows it's going to be a crap show in Denver this year, and he's setting up the excuse in advance. That's their theory. To the extent that there was anything strategic about what Payton did, because remember, the media rushed to defend Payton after those comments came out, and it was almost like talking points that were put out there by the Broncos.
It was
Sean
weird.
Payton doesn't do anything that isn't deliberate or intentional. He has a reason for everything he does. He has a method to everything that he says and every decision he makes, and it's always strategic and it's always deliberate. And I said this Friday, and I wrote about it after the show. Folks, it's possible he just made a mistake. And that's what he said on Friday. I made a mistake. So, even the best of them that have plans and strategies, they're still human beings and they're prone to a human moment. And that's ultimately what happened with Payton. So, and even with that explanation, it wasn't good enough for Rodgers. Rodgers still felt compelled to come off the top rope with the elbow over what Payton had said about Nathaniel Hackett.
Yeah, he's got to. Of course, he should, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, if somebody said something like that about you, I mean, I'd take the same approach, no matter how much respect I got for the other guy, whatever that. It was a low blow. It was unnecessary. It was reckless. There's a lot of other adjectives you could use as well, right? And then that's where I don't understand it. First off, it's just a no-no in the NFL. I don't get that, right? And then, I understand. First off, I thought it was weird. Yeah, there were so many people in the media and everything and a lot of these people know the NFL and they know how it works a little bit to just stick up for him blindly after he eviscerated some human being that he doesn't know, and certainly maybe doesn't know the total, scope of the circumstances. I know he's got a good feel for it, but man, I just don't know what Sean Payton was trying to do there for his football team. I love Sean Payton. You know that. I memean, he's arguably one of the greatest offensive minds in the history of football. But to me, this is like, one, you make a mistake, but after you've said 2 or 3 crazy things, you'd think you'd go, wait, I'm talking a little freely. Let me reel it back in a little bit. He just kept going. And that's where it's like, I think there was probably some tactical part of this for his football team, sticking up for his players, maybe pointing out that it's so bad here. And yeah, sure, setting it up in case it doesn't go good. I've pointed out how crappy it is and all that. But still, to throw another man under the bus that way, that to me is a no-no. And Sean Payton knows that. He wouldn't expect or like any of his players to do that to anybody or anything that way. So good for Aaron Rodgers to take that upon himself and stick up for Nathaniel Hackett, who's, done a lot of good for his career and all that. But, yeah, to question Sean Payton's motives, I think is a little fair in this one.
Well, that's right. And it may have just been that he had no motive, that he had no plan, that Jarrett Bell just caught him at the absolute best time for Jarrett Bell of USA Today and the absolute worst time for Sean Payton, where he was candid. And I first thought that when I saw all that, Sean Payton didn't realize he was on the record.
That's what I thought too.
Now,
exactly.
He had a chance. He had a chance to say that on Friday,
right.
And that gets into the broader relationship with the journalist. Am I going to throw this guy under the bus and say, hey, man, I wasn't on the record? Does he take some responsibility as a savvy head coach who was in the media last year to know when and where and how to go off the record? I mean, if any coach knows how to go and what it means to be on or off the record, it would be him. It would be him. So maybe that was the mistake. Maybe the mistake was not saying off the record, because that's the way plenty of journalists do it. It's a simple thing. You invoke the magic words, abracadabra, off the record, as the subject of the interview. If they just sit down and Jarrett Bell turns on his phone or his tape recorder and he starts talking, if Sean Payton doesn't say off the record, it's all on the record, no matter how outlandish or over the top it might be. And It was outlandish and over the top. I mean, and you're right. There's no reason to go on the record and say, and I could see that some coaches just to vent off the record would
okay.
Just to, we've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, man, I mean, off the record, I mean, this place was a disaster last year. That's all he had to say.
That might have been the worst coaching job I've ever seen.
And then they wouldn't have ever
that the NFL's ever seen.
Right.
Yeah.
So he made it public. And then now it's like, is there a positive about it, too? That's the thing. And, hey, listen, I know we all want to jump on Nathaniel Hackett. I know some things he did were wrong, certainly, too. But there's more blame to go around in that organization, too, than just, Nathaniel Hackett. Hey, you certainly can get on the GM who hired Nathaniel Hackett and probably, set some of these bylaws of the organization or let some of these things go on. Hey, Russell Wilson, he's still got a lot. I know Sean Payton's sticking up for his players, and I give him a lot of respect there, and I love that he does that. Russell Wilson's got things to own up to, too. He played like crap. I'm not saying he was coached the best ever, but he played like crap. There was people open. We saw that. It could have been better. I know it wasn't a lot of support around him. And there, too, to add to that dysfunction, Russell Wilson knows better than to have an office and an entourage with him in the building. What quarterback has done that that's been successful? Did Tom Brady, maybe after a few Super Bowls, he got Don Yee in the building. Okay,
yes.
That was it.
And
but
he had Alex Guerrero in the building.
Not Alex Guerrero, not Don Yee. Excuse me, I get my names mixed up there. But yeah, Peyton Manning, a GOAT of all time. Do you think he had an office and an entourage there? John Elway, a GOAT of all time. Do you think he had an office and an entourage there? So there's plenty of blame to go around here. And I know Sean Payton's trying to stick up for his players, but I think he went overboard here to now where it's actually going to be a distraction, and it's going to put a spotlight more on his football team and him, and especially week 5 when they played the New York Jets, who are going to be highly motivated now.
To the extent that Sean Payton did that deliberately as some way to prop up Russell Wilson. And I don't believe it was deliberate. I believe it was either accidentally on the record or just a mistake, as Payton said.
Okay.
If it was some sort of a plan to prop up Russell Wilson, man, Russell Wilson's got some real issues. If the only way he gets propped up is for Sean Payton to go on the record and say that the coaching job last year was arguably one of the worst in the history of the NFL, and to take a flamethrower to everyone and absolve Russell Wilson for everything that happened last year, if that's what Russell Wilson needs to turn the page, like I said, Russell Wilson's got far bigger issues than we realize. Now, I don't believe it was deliberate. If it was deliberate, though, that's the implication, that he's doing this strategically because this is the only way to get Russell Wilson to forget about last year. Go out there and dump all over Nathaniel Hackett and dump all over everyone else who didn't say anything about it. And I hate to think that is something that was strategic. And this is where Payton turned it back around on the team. That wasn't Russell's fault. That was the parents who allowed it. That's not an incrimination on him, but an incrimination of the head coach, the GM, who's still there, the president, who's still there, and everybody else who watched it all happen, including ownership, who's still there. So that is what's crazy. And he said having an office and a place to watch film is normal, but all these things are magnified when you're losing, and that other stuff, I've never heard of it. We're not doing that. And that he said that back during Super Bowl week. Remember, he had his first press conference when we were at Radio Row and we're doing our show, and Payton said, yeah, we're not going to have these personal coaches and personal trainers and personal this and personal that for Russell Wilson around. That's just not going to happen. And maybe Wilson's position was nobody told me not to do it. Payton's position is anyone that had their fingerprints on this mess last year is to blame. And that was the most stunning part of it. He throws his GM, George Payton, under the bus. He throws team president Damani Leach under the bus. And he indirectly, without saying their names, throws ownership under the bus because they were there to see it happen too.
Yeah.
And nobody said, this may not be a good idea.
If he wanted to throw them under the bus, that's fine. That's fine. They're in his, they're part of his family right now. That's cool. But you went outside the family there. And that's where it was wrong, and it reads to the public, right? And to people in the NFL who I've, texted with throughout the weekend and things like that, where it reads to them as kind of, maybe a preemptive excuse a little bit, or at least laying the foundation for how dysfunctional it is, let alone being careless and insensitive and just reckless that way. Even though, listen, it might have not been intended all those ways, like you said, and he just got too open with it. But those are the things that people are going to infer about those comments and what he said. And that's where it's, not necessarily a great look for Sean Payton. And, I do think in a lot of ways now it puts a little bit more of a spotlight on them. And, like I said, they're going to have to deal with this Jets talk leading up to that game in a major way.
And that is the prevailing view from everyone I've talked to as well.
Right.
That this was, to the extent it was strategic and intentional.
Yeah.
This isn't about propping up any of his players. This isn't about helping Russell Wilson. This isn't about rallying the troops, because all those things could have been said behind closed doors if that's what you're trying to do. This is the prevailing wisdom, or maybe lack thereof, but this is what everyone thinks. He sees a disaster coming, and he's staking out territory where he can say, it was so bad last year.
Yeah.
Even I couldn't turn this mess around in 1 year.
Yeah.
What'd you expect?
Right.
And, he made the comment to Jarrett Bell as well, I'm going to be mad if we don't make the playoffs. Have you checked your schedule? Have you checked the division you're assigned to? Have you looked around the rest of the conference? Because there are 3 wild card spots up for grabs for the people who don't win divisions. Do you really think in 1 year you're going to turn it around and get one of those with the Bills and the Dolphins and the Jets and the Patriots and the Bengals and the Ravens, and who the hell knows what the Browns are going to be, and the Steelers and the Jaguars and the Chiefs and the Chargers? Do you really think you're getting one of those 7 seats this year? Of course not. It would be a shock. Hey, I'm not saying that they're definitely got no chance, but that's the idea. He feels that that it's coming, and this year is going to be maybe as bad as last year, if not worse. It's going to take time to dig out of that hole. That's his theory. That's his idea. The hole was so deep last year, it's going to take me multiple years to dig out of it. And he may have to get a new quarterback by the time he finally digs out of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what he meant by this. I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know if it was, intentional with, I got some reasons I want to say this. I don't know if it was just, I'm sick of answering this damn question and sticking up for my guys, and things are so messed up here. He just kind of lost his emotions and thoughts there a little bit and just let it free flow out of his mouth too easily. I mean, Sean Payton, you and I both know, I know enough people that have worked under Sean Payton. I mean, he's one of those psychos in a good way. He is. We know that. He does expect playoffs. He is that kind of coach. He's the guy that took over the New Orleans Saints and went to the NFC Championship game his first year as a head coach. I do think he's, crazy enough, confident enough, cocky enough to think, hey, I don't care what division or whatever, we want to be in the playoffs. But what?
Hey, and he took over after a true disaster.
A true disaster.
I mean,
Katrina.
That 2005 season was a complete and total mess. Katrina hits just before the season starts. They play their home games in Baton Rouge and San Antonio, and they clear out everyone afterward, and in comes Sean Payton. And in the first year, they got to the NFC Championship game. So he's proven in the past he can have an immediate impact. Maybe he knows this year it's just not going to happen, that the odds are stacked against them, and he needed to stake out an excuse, assuming that there was a strategy at play. I just think he made a mistake. And I have a feeling there's a hell of a story behind how this all came to be. I just have a feeling that may actually be the case, and maybe we'll find out what that story is one of these days. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.